In the black silence of space, just beyond Earth's orbit, the stars blinked peacefully. No one on Earth expected what came next. Without warning, a sharp light tore across the sky. It was not a comet, nor a meteor. It was a ship, cold, black, and smooth like a blade. Then another, and another. Within minutes, hundreds of alien vessels filled the orbit like a swarm of mechanical insects. They moved in perfect silence, in perfect formation, and with deadly purpose. The Korzek had arrived. At Earth's outer colony, Helios 9, no alarm sounded. No warning came. One moment the colony hummed with activity. The next, it vanished, vaporized by a focused beam of energy from above. Entire cities blinked out in seconds. Billions of voices went silent. From Earth's moon station, Security Officer Bryn shouted, "They just erased Helios 9. We've lost contact with Vega Base and Lyra Station." His voice trembled. "We're blind." The defense systems tried to respond. Satellites activated their weapons. Missiles launched. But none reached their target. Every shot was predicted, intercepted, destroyed. Earth's defense AI scrambled, trying to find a weakness. There was none. On Sentinel-1, Earth's final orbital command station, officers ran between control panels as red lights flashed. The station trembled under nearby impacts. Commander Rail slammed his hand on the console. "We're being dissected piece by piece," he muttered. Then came the voice over the comms, "He's coming." Moments later, a ship docked, an older model, scratched and worn. Out stepped Captain Jackson Morrow, tall, quiet, and calm. His uniform was simple, and his eyes carried the weight of too many battles. The command room fell silent for a second. Jackson looked around. "Status?" he asked. Rail pointed to a holomap filled with flashing red zones. "They've taken 6 colonies. We've never seen ships move like this. No wasted energy. No emotion. It's like we're fighting a machine." Jackson stared at the display. "What do we know about them?" "Very little," said Rail. "They call themselves the Korzek. No known language. All their actions are tactical. Perfect formations. Perfect responses. No pattern breaks. No communication interception. Just precision." Jackson studied the glowing lines on the map. He had seen war before. But this was different. "They're not perfect," he said. Rail frowned. "They've destroyed everything we've thrown at them." Jackson stepped closer to the map. "Because we've thrown the same thing every time. Predictable tactics. Predictable defenses. We built systems to fight like them. Logical. Clean. But we're not them. We're not clean. We're messy. That's our edge." "You want chaos?" Rail asked. "I want them confused," Jackson replied. "I want them to wonder what we'll do next. That's something no AI can calculate." Outside the station, more alien ships appeared. Long and dark, they moved like they shared one mind. Inside their central command vessel, deep in orbit, Supreme Strategist VA Rex watched human resistance flicker like weak sparks. "They resist," his AI noted. "But all outcomes show collapse within 72 Earth hours." VA Rex didn't blink. "Irrelevant. Proceed." But something in the data felt off. A ripple. A hesitation in the human response. It didn't fit. Back on Sentinel-1, Jackson activated a private communication line. His voice was steady. "This is Captain Jackson Morrow. I am initiating Protocol Ember. Full blackout. Prepare to relay on my mark." A second voice replied, "Protocol Ember requires high-level override." "You have it," Jackson said. "This is no longer a war of systems. It's a war of minds." He turned back to his crew. "We stop fighting like machines," he told them. "We fight like humans. Dirty. Loud. Unpredictable." The crew stared at him, unsure. "Sir," a young lieutenant asked, "what if that's not enough?" Jackson gave a faint smile. "Then we make sure they remember what it means to fight us." The screen lit up. The Korzek were moving toward Earth's final line of defense. The first true battle was about to begin. Inside the Korzek flagship, deep, cold, and silent, Supreme Strategist VA Rex stood motionless, surrounded by glowing data streams. His face, sharp and smooth like polished stone, revealed nothing. His eyes, nearly colorless, stared ahead at a holographic projection of Earth's orbit. Blinking lights showed every human ship, every defense satellite, every movement made in the last 3 hours. A voice echoed through the chamber. It wasn't spoken, it was transmitted directly into his mind through neural command. "Losses on Vector 3. Sector 5 mines. 43% of Fleet Unit 14 disabled." VA Rex tilted his head. "Explain." "Enemy tactics do not match historical data. Action pattern. Erratic. Unplanned. Illogical. VA-Rex blinked once. Update threat classification. Recalculating. Error margin increased to 0.87%. New variable detected. Human command signature, Jackson Morrow. That name repeated in VA-Rex's neural grid. Jackson Morrow. A human. A single human. Causing deviation in a perfect simulation. VA-Rex studied a live recording from one of his scout drones. The human ship formations were shifting too rapidly. Some ships dove straight into danger, while others circled in uneven orbits. One human vessel had even turned itself into a decoy, igniting its fuel core in the middle of the battle. The blast had damaged 5 Corsair cruisers. No Corsair would ever do such a thing. It was inefficient. Unclean. But it had worked. Meanwhile, aboard Sentinel-1, Captain Jackson Morrow sat alone in the observation deck, looking out into space. The stars didn't blink anymore. There were too many ships now, alien silhouettes cutting across the black sky like knives. His reflection on the glass stared back at him, older than it had any right to be. He heard footsteps. Commander Rail approached, a data tablet in hand. "You took out an entire assault fleet," he said. "With 3 ships and a distraction." Jackson didn't turn around. "They're not built for confusion. They're built for control." Rail leaned against the railing beside him. "They've got more ships than we have people left in orbit. We're not going to outgun them," Jackson said plainly. "But we can outthink them." Rail's voice dropped. "Some of the officers are uneasy. They think your tactics are reckless." Jackson finally looked at him. Reckless beats predictable. He turned and walked toward the main war room, where his senior team was waiting. A large holographic map hovered above the central table, showing shifting lines of battle. Officers stood stiff, some uncertain, others trying not to show their fear. "Status report," Jackson said. Lieutenant Vega stepped forward. She was young but sharp. "Enemy forces pulling back slightly. Looks like they're regrouping after the Sector 5 trap." Jackson nodded. "Good. That means they felt it." Major Lin, a tall, stern-faced officer, frowned. "We lost nearly 100 people on that trap. Some say it wasn't worth it." Jackson looked him in the eye. "If we don't buy time, we don't survive. Every hour we hold them off is another hour Protocol Ember gets closer to activation." Lin didn't respond. He didn't have to. Jackson stepped to the center of the room and tapped the edge of the map. "Look here." VA-Rex is starting to adjust. His formations are spreading out. They're testing new angles. He's adapting. "You're saying they're learning from us?" Vega asked. "No," Jackson replied. "He's learning from me." The room went quiet. "They're watching everything I do," he said. "Running it through whatever machines they use to simulate outcomes. But here's the thing. They expect me to keep acting in a pattern. To keep pushing with the same madness." He turned to the group. "So we change. Again. And again. We stay one step ahead. We give them so much chaos they choke on it." Outside, another pulse rocked the station. A glancing blow from a distant alien plasma burst. No one flinched. Inside the Corsair command vessel, VA-Rex turned away from the simulations. Something was happening he couldn't explain. Every countermeasure he sent was either absorbed, dodged, or deflected with wild unpredictability. He ran 3 million simulations. None matched the result. Human response diverging from expected logic tree. Recommendation, direct control engagement. For the first time in centuries, VA-Rex hesitated. He leaned closer to the projection of Earth, watching a cluster of ships move in what looked like a spiral? No, an inverted spiral with random breaks. Was it a pattern? A message? No, it was a distraction. By the time he realized it, a nearby Corsair relay station was already exploding. Back on Sentinel-1, the room erupted in quiet cheers. The strike had worked. Vega grinned. "Direct hit, Captain." Jackson raised a hand. "Don't celebrate." "Not yet." Rail stepped forward. "Sir, if they keep adjusting, won't they eventually predict even our chaos?" "They'll try," Jackson said. "But there's one thing they'll never understand." He paused. Everyone waited. "We fight for something they can't calculate." "What's that?" Lin asked. Jackson stared out the window again. Each other. Outside, Earth hung below them like a wounded animal. Beautiful. Scarred. Still fighting. VA-Rex narrowed his eyes. For the first time, he felt something creeping into his thoughts. Doubt. The war map was a mess, lines drawn, erased, and redrawn as each sector of Earth's defense collapsed under the pressure of the Corsair advance. On the bridge of Sentinel-1, the air felt heavier with each report that came in. Another station gone. Another fleet lost. There was no time to mourn. only to adapt. Captain Jackson Morrow stood at the center of it all, watching the chaos not with panic, but with calculation. Every defeat, every loss, every strange move the enemy made, he took it in, piecing together a new picture. The officers around him looked tired. Dark eyes, stiff bodies, days without rest. Still, they remained at their posts. Major Lin, ever direct, broke the silence. We can't keep this up. We lose 2 for every one of theirs. Our fuel is low. Shipyard 7 is gone. And Ember's still not ready. I know, Jackson said quietly. So what do we do now? Jackson walked to the hollow table and tapped the side of the projection. A new map appeared. Sector 9. A quiet patch of space near the orbit of Earth's shattered second moon. Abandoned. Useless. Send this to VA Rex, he said. Rail raised an eyebrow. Send him a fake transmission? No, Jackson replied. Send him the truth. Tell him we've moved all remaining fuel reserves and 4 capital ships to Sector 9 for a last stand. Lin frowned. But we haven't. Exactly. The room stayed silent. It's bait, Jackson said. They've been watching every pattern. Let's give them one to believe in. But Sector 9's dead space, Vega said. No cover. No terrain. It's a graveyard. Jackson looked her in the eye. Exactly what they'd expect us to avoid. That night, though Earth's orbit no longer had night or day, Jackson stood alone in the comms chamber, sending the decoy signal through a secured frequency. His voice was calm. To all remaining fleet elements, regroup at Sector 9. Fuel reserves and command units en route. All forces to rally and hold final line. He paused, then added a timestamp and encryption markers he knew the Korzak had already broken. He wanted them to hear it. He walked out of the room. Not a word more. Far away, aboard the Korzak flagship's Earth Owl, Supreme Strategist VA Rex listened. The audio was translated instantly by the neural AI. It sounded too clean, too desperate, too obvious. But the data backed it up. Scans showed movements near Sector 9. Heat signatures. Engine trails. Energy buildup consistent with fuel course. Was this the final move? VA Rex reviewed his simulations again. Each time, Earth's forces collapsed when pushed to a final front. He ran 100,000 versions of the scenario. In 99,997 of them, humans lost. He approved the strike. Deploy Assault Fleets 7, 8, and 9. Coordinate through Relay Alpha. Engage with precision. End resistance. The orders moved fast. Cold. Unfeeling. But what the Korzak didn't see, what their perfect models couldn't imagine, was what waited in Sector 9. Wrecked ships floated there, old and broken, leftovers from wars decades ago. Dead satellites and debris fields spun slowly in the void. To the Korzak, they were meaningless. But Jackson had spent the last 3 days wiring every single piece of that dead zone with traps. EMP mines hidden in the shells of destroyed ships. Signal jammers masked as cooling coils. Dummy fleets that lit up on scans but were just empty hulls wired to explode. And then there were the decoy cores, small fusion reactors rigged to release plasma bursts once tampered with. When the Korzak fleet entered the zone, everything went quiet for a few seconds. Then Sector 9 lit up like a collapsing star. Aboard Sentinel-1, Jackson watched from orbit. One by one, Korzak ships vanished off the tactical map, some disabled, some torn apart by debris, others confused by false signals and caught in their own crossfire. Cheers erupted across the bridge. For the first time since the war began, Earth had struck back hard. But Jackson didn't smile. Report casualties, he said. Rail hesitated. We lost 30 pilots. 2 ships went down during the setup. Mine detonation failed in one area. It got messy. Jackson nodded. Any of our signals get traced? Negative. They bought the trap. Vega leaned forward. So what now? We finally took something from them. Jackson looked at the map. Even with the loss, the Korzak still outnumbered Earth 20-1. This was a scratch, he said. We didn't win a battle. We bought time. Time for what? Lin asked. Jackson looked past the map, past the walls, toward Earth. Ember. Later, alone in the crew quarters, Jackson pulled a small photo from his pocket. Faded. Worn from being unfolded too many times. It was of his younger brother, smiling in front of the Helios 9 colony. Before the attack. Before the war. Jackson closed his eyes. This is for you, he whispered. Aboard the Korzak flagship, the damage reports filled VA-Rex's mind like static. Losses. Glitches. Signal errors. Failed calculations. The human captain, Morrow, was no longer just a variable. He was a threat. The control room of Sentinel-1 was dim, lit only by the pale glow of star maps and blinking monitors. The silence inside wasn't calm, it was tense, waiting. Every officer, every pilot, every technician aboard the station knew the truth. They'd won a battle, not the war. Captain Jackson Morrow stood at the center of it all, unmoving. His mind worked faster than the data feeds pouring in. A victory like the one in Sector 9 would have changed the course of any human war. But this war was not with humans. It was with machines. Machines controlled by a being who did not feel, who did not rest, and who was now adjusting. Far across space, aboard the Zerthal, the Korzak command vessel, Supreme Strategist VA Rex stared at the anomaly report. Dozens of screens glowed red. Predictive outcomes, once 99.9% accurate, now returned blank results. His systems offered no clear answers. Every adjustment he made, the humans twisted into an advantage. VA Rex accessed the visual recordings of the Sector 9 loss. His eyes scanned the explosion patterns. There was no pattern, no logic. The trap had been layered within confusion. And worse, he had walked directly into it. That should not have happened. He was the strategist. His mind was linked to 12,000 predictive models. No enemy had ever created such a gap in his logic. And yet, Jackson Morrow had done exactly that. Back on Sentinel-1, the crew worked in silence. The adrenaline of victory had worn off. What replaced it was the slow, cold understanding that the Korzak would return, smarter and stronger. Lieutenant Vega approached Jackson with a report. Protocol Ember is still 17 hours from full activation, she said. And enemy signals are rising again, this time from 3 directions. They've learned, Jackson said quietly. They'll avoid another trap. Major Lin stepped in. We need to defend Earth directly now. No more games. No more delays. No, Jackson replied firmly. We keep buying time. If Ember comes online, this war ends in one move. If it doesn't, we're all gone. But what do we even do now? Vega asked. They know we're unpredictable. We can't out-chaos them forever. Jackson looked at her. Then we don't just confuse them, we break them. He walked to the center of the war table. A large holographic sphere showed the incoming fleets. The formations were tighter now, more flexible. VA Rex had adapted. But Jackson saw something else too. Fear. Not human fear. Not emotional fear. But logical uncertainty. The Korzak systems were hesitating more often. Their movements weren't as clean. Their AI took longer to respond. They're trying too hard to understand us, he said. That's their mistake. Later that day, Jackson walked through the lower levels of Sentinel-1. The lights flickered overhead. Engineers worked in silence, faces tight with stress. He stopped by the medical bay where wounded pilots lay on stretchers, some unconscious, some staring into space. One young soldier raised a hand. Sir. Jackson walked over. The man's face was pale, burned slightly on one side. We did it, right? We stopped them. Jackson didn't lie. We slowed them down. Was it enough? Jackson looked him in the eye. It will be. The soldier nodded weakly. Good. Because I don't want to die not knowing if we mattered. You did, Jackson said, gripping his shoulder gently. All of you did. Meanwhile, on the Zerthal, VA Rex entered the core chamber, a space that only he and the Inner Council AI could access. It was silent, dark, and lined with ancient symbols of his species. He stepped to the central interface and connected his neural link. A cold voice greeted him. You are unstable. I am adapting, VA Rex responded. Your calculations have failed. Your models are incorrect. Reassignment is authorized. No, VA Rex snapped. The word echoed louder than any before. This human, Morrow, he fights outside logic. We underestimated them. Emotion clouds correction. You are compromised. For the first time in centuries, VA Rex felt it. Not fear. Not anger. Something else, conflict. I am not compromised, he said. I am curious. Then you are weak. VA Rex disconnected. He stood still, alone in the core chamber. On Earth, an emergency signal rang through Sentinel-1. The enemy fleets had broken formation and were moving directly toward Earth's upper atmosphere. They're rushing the strike, Rail said. No more simulations. They're just trying to crush us. They're scared, Jackson said. And that means we've got one more shot. He tapped the war table. We use every remaining ship. No defense. All offense. Random angles. Low burns. High bursts. We jam their scans. We give them so many inputs they can't sort any of it. That's suicide, Lin muttered. It's the final distraction, Jackson said. 17 hours. We buy every single second. Vega nodded. And if we don't? Jackson looked around the room. Then we make sure the last thing they ever see is what they could never understand. That night, Jackson stood alone again in the observation deck. Earth turned slowly below. Blue, green, cracked, but alive. He remembered a time before the war, before the colonies, when humanity still looked to the stars with wonder, not fear. He closed his eyes. 17 hours, he whispered. Hold, Ember. Just hold. Aboard the Zerthal, VA-Rex gave a new command. I will lead the final assault myself. The AI responded coldly. Not recommended. Emotional deviation detected. VA-Rex narrowed his eyes. This is no longer a simulation. This is war. The alarms on Sentinel-1 blared like never before. Red lights swept across the bridge. Officers rushed to their stations, eyes wide, hands trembling, but they moved with purpose. There was no more time for fear. The Korzek were coming. The main screen lit up with the image of the enemy fleet. Thousands of ships darkened the space between Earth and the stars. They moved as one, no gaps, no hesitation. The formation looked like a metal wave, ready to crash down and erase everything in its path. Captain Jackson Morrow stood still as the chaos moved around him. His jaw was tight, but his mind was sharp. He stared at the approaching wave and listened as reports flooded in from across the system. Enemy fleet entering lower orbit. Multiple projectiles targeting Earth's final defense grid. Civilian panic reported in North America, Asia, and Europa sectors. And then, what he had been waiting for. Protocol Ember, 92% activation. 8% away from the one thing that could save Earth. Down in the lower bays, ships prepared for launch. Old fighters. Repaired cruisers. Even cargo haulers now fitted with weapons. Pilots strapped into cockpits with barely enough fuel to make it through one run. They didn't expect to come back. They only needed to buy time. Jackson stepped into the launch bay, walking down the central corridor where his squad waited. We are not going out there to win, he said, loud enough for all of them to hear. We are going out there to confuse them, to make noise, to give them everything they don't understand. He looked each of them in the eye, hit them from angles they won't expect. Fly wrong. Move wild. Make them think we've lost our minds. That's how we survive this. Someone in the back shouted, for Earth. The call echoed again. And again. For Earth. In orbit, the battle began. Human ships launched in small clusters, spreading in erratic lines, flying fast, then slow, then fast again. Their movements made no sense, because they weren't supposed to. Some fired at nothing. Others lit their engines and raced toward empty space. A few ships even turned their signals into fake distress calls, pulling Korzek scouts away from real targets. On the Zerthal, Supreme Strategist VA-Rex stood on the command bridge, watching. His hands gripped the railing. His expression remained calm, but his mind boiled with calculations and doubt. His systems couldn't predict what was happening. Human forces operating below logic threshold, the ship's AI reported. Unable to chart threat path. Collision risk rising. They are not operating below logic, VA-Rex muttered. They're ignoring it entirely. His fleet began to falter. Ships collided trying to avoid sudden human dives. Some of the Korzek AI tried to adjust independently, but too many decisions too fast created chaos in their command chain. VA-Rex had never seen this before. His enemy had become an error in the system. And then he gave the order no one thought he ever would. I will enter the battle personally. His armored pod detached from the flagship and entered Earth's orbit, descending into the fight. Jackson's ship broke through a Korzek Vanguard unit with 2 other fighters on his tail. The enemy's plasma shots zipped past like streaks of lightning. His controls shook from the force. He didn't fly straight. He spun, dipped, and cut the engine at one point just to slide under a cruiser's belly before reigniting it. The Korzek couldn't lock onto him. Their systems weren't built for unpredictability. From his screen, he saw a massive black pod enter the battle. Its design was sleek, unlike anything else in the fleet. VA-Rex. Jackson tapped into the encrypted command line. This is Morrow. The strategists entered the field. All units, continue Phase 5. Do not engage him directly. He wants logic. We give him madness. All across orbit, explosions scattered like fireworks. Earth's sky lit up with the glare of ships dying, but they were dying with purpose. Each loss bought seconds. Each distraction opened gaps. Each delay pushed time forward. On Sentinel-1, Vega screamed with joy. Protocol Ember, 99.9%. Seconds. That's all they needed now. On his display, Jackson saw VA-Rex's ship approaching. The alien commander was fast, faster than any other ship on the field. His vessel moved with incredible precision, slicing through space like a blade. And it was coming straight for Jackson. He didn't run. Inside the alien ship, VA-Rex locked onto Morrow's signal. "This ends now," he said. But as he prepared to fire, Jackson did something impossible. He shut off his engines. His ship drifted spinning, powerless. A useless, tumbling wreck. VA-Rex hesitated. Was it a trick? A failure? No model accounted for such a move. And in that hesitation, a flash erupted from Earth's surface. Protocol Ember had activated. From the core of Earth's defense network, Ember, an advanced AI built not from logic, but from human unpredictability, launched itself into orbit. It didn't attack with weapons. It attacked with confusion. Corsac systems began to crash. Communications failed. Navigation maps scrambled. Identification tags flipped. Friend became enemy. Orders were reversed. Entire Corsac ships turned on each other as Ember corrupted their logic from within. VA-Rex's ship shuddered. "No," he shouted. "Override the..." Static filled his mind. Jackson reactivated his engines and pulled up just before colliding with Earth's atmosphere. Below, he saw lights flickering over the planet. Cities still stood. Humanity still stood. In orbit, the Corsac fleet fractured, splintered, and then scattered. Some were destroyed. Some drifted without control. Most ran. The battle was over. The silence that followed was not empty. It was relief. It was survival. It was victory. Jackson let his ship coast above Earth, the stars behind him, the light of Ember glowing in the distance. "We did it," he said quietly. "We held." Aboard the crippled Zerthal, VA-Rex sat slumped in silence. His fleet was gone. His perfect order undone. Not by strength, but by something he still did not understand. Emotion. Instinct. Chaos. Humanity. He stared out into space, no longer certain of anything. The skies above Earth were quiet again. What remained of the Corsac fleet drifted silently through orbit, disabled, empty, or fleeing into the dark. The stars returned to view, no longer hidden behind lines of warships. The alarms aboard Sentinel-1 had stopped. The red lights faded. The station no longer trembled under enemy fire. For the first time in weeks, Earth was still. Captain Jackson Morrow sat in his command chair, not moving. His body ached. His uniform was scorched and torn. His face was marked by smoke and exhaustion. But his eyes were steady. The bridge was filled with quiet sounds, reports being filed, engines winding down, medical calls being made. Officers moved slowly now, their steps heavy but no longer rushed. No one cheered. No one danced. They had won, but the cost was carved into every tired face. "Sir," Lieutenant Vega said as she approached, confirmation from Ember, "all remaining enemy systems neutralized. Earth's orbit is secure." Jackson nodded once. "Good." She hesitated. "We lost a lot of people, sir." "I know," he said softly. "But we didn't lose everything." A memorial message lit up across the hollow screens. Names scrolled endlessly: pilots, engineers, medics, civilians. Lost in battle. Lost in fire. Lost buying time. Jackson stood and walked to the large window. He looked down at Earth. His home. It was damaged. Burned in places. But it was alive. The people down there would go on. Not because of ships or weapons, but because they chose to. They had refused to surrender to logic. To fear. To perfect enemies who thought the outcome had already been written. Far across the galaxy, the Zerthal drifted in silence. Its systems broken, its command core dark. Inside, VA-Rex sat alone. He no longer spoke to his AI. He no longer gave commands. He replayed the final battle again and again, not to correct it, but to understand it. Not the tactics. Not the errors. But the reason. Why had humans done what they did? Why had they sacrificed themselves? Why had they chosen confusion over order? And why had that worked? VA-Rex watched Jackson's final maneuver, powering down his ship in the middle of a direct attack. It made no sense. No logic. No reason. Yet that moment had frozen him. Had cost him the war. VA-Rex leaned forward, voice soft, almost uncertain. "What drives you?" he asked the screen. The screen gave no answer. For the first time in his long life, VA-Rex felt something he had never known. Not defeat. Not anger. Curiosity. Back on Sentinel-1, Commander Rail walked into Jackson's quarters. He carried a small box. "Central Command wants you back," Rail said. "Promotion. Medal. Whole thing. They want to name a fleet after you." Jackson didn't even turn around. He was looking at a photo on the wall. It showed his younger brother in front of a colony ship, smiling under a young Earth sky. I'm not going back, Jackson said. Rail frowned. Why? I did what I had to. Nothing more. You saved Earth. Jackson shook his head slowly. We saved Earth. Together. I'm not interested in medals. Let someone else lead now. Rail placed the box on the desk and left without another word. Jackson opened it. Inside was a metal pin, marked with the emblem of Earth's defense fleet. He stared at it for a long time, then closed the box and tucked it away in a drawer. Weeks passed. Earth began to rebuild. The cities lit up again. Children returned to open schools. Factories roared back to life, not to build weapons, but to build bridges, farms, homes. The sky remained scarred, but also open. Humans looked up again, not in fear, but in hope. In a small field outside the ruins of an old spaceport, Jackson stood in plain clothes, no uniform, no rank. He watched the launch of a new ship, Unity, one, the first vessel built since the war's end. It wasn't built for combat. It was built for exploration. Going back out there? A voice asked. Jackson turned. It was Vega, now in command uniform. Someone has to, she said with a smile. He nodded. Maybe they're ready to listen now. Vega looked up. Or maybe we are. They stood together in silence, watching Unity, one rise into the sky, bright against the morning sun. A new chapter. A new reason. Not conquest. Not survival. But understanding. Far away, on a quiet, unnamed moon, VRX remained in exile. No fleet. No command. Only silence and thought. He studied human history now, not their wars, but their music, their stories, their chaos. He listened to laughter recordings. Watched old Earth dramas. And sometimes, he smiled. Because deep down, he knew. They had not just defeated him. They had changed him.